I don't know if you can see that. It's a picture of the Rolling Stones at home, and there's Keith Richards with Chanel the dog. And it was really a day like no other. And people often say sort of, how did you get to photograph a day with the Rolling Stones? And the truth is, the only reason I got to do it is because I sneaked into Live Aid in 1985. And because I sneaked into Live Aid and made a magazine, the publicist of doing the Live Aid concert rang me up and had a go at me and said, we're going to sue you because your magazine looks like the official Live Aid magazine and you're in real trouble. And I was really worried. And because I donated a lot of money from the sale of that magazine to Live Aid, nothing actually happened. But over the next 5 or 10 years, I sort of built up a relationship with this guy, and his name was Bernard Doherty. And Bernard is one of the top publicists in the world. He's looked after so many superstars, and he looks after the Rolling Stones. In 1993, he just rings me out of the blue and he says, oh Duncan, we need a picture of the Rolling Stones just at the gate of their house in Ireland. Could you go and do it? And I said, well, it's not really my cup of tea. He says, it'll only take you a minute. It's tomorrow. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it tomorrow. I'm busy. Because I was running a picture agency. I had 20 staff and I was running around and all that sort of stuff. So I said, I can't do it. And it's funny, isn't it, when people say, it'll only take you a minute. A minute. And it's a bit like that great Picasso story. Picasso's in a little French patisserie and a lady walks up to him and she says, Mr. Picasso. He goes, oh yes. Can you just do a little drawing of my daughter on the serviette? He goes, oh yes, no problem. He goes, oh. And he gives her the serviette and she says, oh, thank you, Picasso. And he says, that's $50,000. And she said, but it only took you a minute. He said, no, it took me 50 years. And that's the thing about photography, painting, anyone who's any good at anything, it's taken them a long time. It doesn't take you a minute. Anyway, I'm going off the story a little bit. So he said, could you go tomorrow to Ireland? We've got a flight at 11 o'clock in the morning. You just got to get on a flight, get off the plane. The security will take you to the Rolling Stones house and you just take a picture of the group shot and then you come back. It'll only take you a minute. And I said, but I can't do it. I'm busy. And also, the one thing I'm not very good at is taking still pictures of people, especially, and I know nothing about music. I don't understand music. It's just, I don't like that. It's like same with football and golf. I don't know about these things. So I felt really awkward and I just didn't want to do it. I know it sounds mad, but I just didn't want to do it. And I thought it'd be much better if they got a proper photographer in Dublin, in Ireland, to do it. So I said no. And then the next few hours later, he rings me up again and he says, Duncan, we really need this done tomorrow, this photograph. And I said, and anyway, we went for a couple of pints of Guinness. And I said, I can't do it, Bernard. And he said, oh, please do it. Just do us a favour. So the next morning, I go to Heathrow with my cameras, fly to Dublin, the security at the airport, one of those bits of paper, you know, your name on it. And then they pick me up in this sort of Toyota MPV and we drive about an hour out into deep into the Irish countryside, yeah. And as we're approaching the house where the Stones are, the security stopped and they sort of said, do you mind? I think they put some sort of balaclava, something on my head so that I didn't know the address. And then for the next mile, we're going down some track. And then we get there and then they take this hat off of me. I can't remember what it was now. And I'm sort of a bit dazed. And they say, right, okay, wait a minute. And they radio through and they go, and Ronnie's, I can hear it. He goes, yeah. Oh, we've got this photographer, Duncan, here to do the group picture. Will you come to the gate? And I heard Ronnie Wood say, well, Mick's not here and Charlie's not here. You'll have to just open the gates and drive in. So these gates open and I go into this beautiful courtyard of this Victorian double-fronted house and the sky's blue. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30, something like that. And then they sort of obviously stopped the car and they pulled a side door open and I climb out with my camera bag and I'm obviously a bit nervous, you know. and all I can see is a blur, a white blur, and basically there's this Great Dane, and it's galloping towards me, and it jumps on me, and it knocks me over, right? My cameras go flying, and I'm on the floor, like sort of like this. And the next second, I'm looking up, and there's Keith Richards and Ronnie Wood trying to help me up, and they've got a Guinness in their hand, or I think Keith did. And then I said, and they said, oh, do you fancy a Guinness? We're really sorry about that. That's Chanel, the Great Dane. And this dog's licking me and everything. And then 5 minutes later, I'm in this beautiful bar. The house is surrounded by barns, and one of them is a bar with all suits of armour, pinball machines. There's a bar with all Guinness. And Keith Richards is pouring me a Guinness. And Ronnie Wood has disappeared. And so I'm just sitting there, and Keith sits opposite me and gives me this Guinness, and he's got a drink, and he's just sitting there looking down. And then this Great Dane, albino Great Dane, just walks in, sees Keith, and you know how smooth he is, and the dog just falls at his feet. And I think, God, blimey, that's a good picture, isn't it? And Keith puts his foot up on the dog's back, and I thought, oh, and I'd been talking to Keith for a couple of minutes, and then I just thought, oh, so I've got my camera out, sort of just like this, and I just sort of said it like that, and I just went, didn't even look through the camera. I was it was sort of this sort of height, and took these pictures, and Keith sort of smiled, and I thought, wow, God, that might be quite an interesting picture. And then we're talking for about another 15 minutes, and he was just so charming and so cool, and he was asking me about my life and photography and stuff like that. And then Ronnie walks in, and he says, oh, so sorry, I've been in my art studio. And I said, oh, my mum was an artist. And then Ron says, oh, was she? And I said, told about my mum's painting. And then Ron goes, well, do you want to see some of my art? And then I'm in another barn with Ronnie Wood and all his paintings, and there's paintings everywhere and drawings, and you know, he's quite a talent, isn't he? So I'm there about 20 minutes, and then Ron says, oh, let's go back to the bar. So I go back to the bar, and Keith's still in there, and Ron says, oh, let's have another drink then. So they get 2 halves of Guinness, and I said, I don't know, I just sort of said, why don't we just sit outside? It's so sunny. And they sort of said, yeah. And as they sort of walked out, I got in front of Ron and Keith, and I sort of got my camera, again, like this. I do a lot of pictures without. If you practice being a photographer, you can sort of see the shape you can get of it. And I just sort of walked backwards, walk with me, bang, 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 bang. And I got these pictures of them walking together, and they were sort of laughing. And then, that's it. Then we sat in the garden, and then about half an hour later, Mick turns up, and Charlie turned up, and Mick comes in the bar, and he said, well, where are we going to do this picture? We've got to do this picture, haven't we? And I said, well, why don't we just walk around the gardens? They're so beautiful. And they just all sort of went, yeah, okay. And so we start walking around. I'm walking backwards in front of them. And I am really nervous, honestly. The strange thing was this day was there was nobody there. It was just me and the 4 Rolling Stones. And that is really unusual, because normally with all, you know, photography shoots with superstars, you've got hair, makeup, security, management, agents. They're all this entourage, and you can't really be yourself, and you can't really paint with your camera. But I suppose because I've been on myself with them for an hour, and I'd had a couple of Guinnesses, maybe I was a bit relaxed, I don't know. And we just start walking around. I'm walking backwards doing these pictures, and then Mick says, so is that it then? And I said, well, do you mind just sitting in this little garden area? So I got them sitting there, and they got the Guinness there, and I just did a couple of pictures, picture here, picture there, and I said, okay. And then I remember Mick said something like, it's quite nice sitting here. We don't normally just sit down like this together. And I just thought, do you know what? There's 4 friends there just sitting together. 4 guys that were really ordinary who'd become extraordinary. Maybe I just captured something, I don't know. Anyway, I've got them up, and then suddenly there's this barking, and Chanel is galloping across behind me, and Ron runs over and starts chasing her with his wife. And I thought, well, that's a good picture. So I was sort of going like that. And then I said to Ron and Joe as well, I said, can I just do a love shot? And Ronnie went, what's a love shot? I said, I'll just come here. And I sat them on a fence at a wall and just did a couple of pictures of them just sitting together, laughing. It was just a little moment in time. And then after that, we walked around the rest of the garden. And I mean, all this happened in probably a space of about 15 minutes. It wasn't like a 2-hour shoot. I was just trying to maybe bleed it a bit, make the most of it. And then we're going around the back of the house, and then Mick says, well, I'm going in a rehearsal studio. We'll get the security, pick you up. And then Keith said, come and see the studio. And I go in this studio where the drums and all their kit are, and I just pose them up. And there's an owl there at the back. Anyway, that's sort of irrelevant. But I did a few more pictures. And I was really nervous, you know what I mean? I'm with the Rolling Stones, but I don't know, there's some sort of magic happened that day. And it's funny, isn't it? How something like this can happen when you just don't plan it. And I think because they were quite relaxed and I was relaxed, maybe we just got a really different set of pictures. And as I say, it was so unusual for no one to be there. It was almost like I had them in the palm of my hand and I could sort of do what I want with them. But it was a magical time. And then I remember them saying, well, security will be coming here in about an hour to pick you up. Do you want a cup of tea? And we go in the kitchen, and Keith Richards' wife, she's making a spaghetti bolognese. And then we're sitting there, and it was about 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock if I remember correctly. And then my mobile goes, and we got one of them big brick mobiles back in 1993. And I go, yeah, they go, and it's got, oh, Duncan. And it's a guy that tips me off on a bit of information. He goes, Duncan, where are you? And I go, oh, I'm just I'm just sort of sitting with the Rolling Stones. Oh yeah, of course you are, mate. It's funny what can happen, isn't it, if you sneak into Live Aid. But anyway, it was and the Stones approved about 15 or 25 pictures for worldwide publication. So that was a day like no other. And that's the end of that little story. But thanks a lot. See ya.